I'd pick this one high dividend ETF to live off of dividends forever. Investing for dividend income is definitely one of the best ways to live off of dividends as fast as possible, but also for your entire investing career, no matter what stage of life you're in. Dividend investing is also an amazing way to generate passive income from high, juicy, and sweet dividends without having to lift a finger because you're letting your dividend stocks, or in this case, dividend ETFs, do all the hard work for you. Now, I know what you might be thinking, like, Marcos, how are we going to have to live off of dividends forever, let alone as fast as possible, when that might require so much money, literally a ton of money to even quit our 9 to 5, let alone have thousands of dollars a month flow into our investing accounts. So if you want to live off of dividends the slow and turtle way forever, which might take you decades to achieve, then some options I like are SCHD, VYM, DGRO, FDVV, and basically any dividend growth ETF with a dividend yield of around 2 to 4%. On the flip side though, there are high dividend covered call ETFs, which is the premise of this video, that literally have a super high dividend yield, so we can live off of dividends as fast as possible, and these ETFs pay their dividend every single month versus quarterly. Now, monthly income is definitely way better than having something like a quarterly dividend paying stock or ETF, because most expenses come due on a monthly basis. Think your mortgage, your car payment, your credit card debt if you have any, and literally most of your expenses will come on a monthly basis. So you want to have something like a high dividend covered call ETF to cover those expenses to live off of dividends forever. So let's talk about my favorite high dividend covered call ETFs, and then towards the end of this video, I'll choose only one, yes, only one high dividend ETF to literally live off of dividends forever. So let's get started. Okay, for some background knowledge on what a covered call ETF is, in a nutshell, a covered call ETF is an investment fund that uses a covered call strategy to generate high income for investors. A covered call ETF basically holds a portfolio of stocks and then sells or writes call options on the stocks in the ETF. The result is this generates premiums, which are then distributed to investors as income, or in this case, high dividend income. Now, one thing to note is that there is downsides of owning a covered call ETF, where that downside is going to be limited upside potential. Because you're sacrificing your upside potential or share price appreciation for high dividend income, so you're trading off, more income, and then you're going to have less upside potential. Okay, so with all that out of the way on what a covered call ETF is, I want to let you know that all the ETFs in this video are going to be high quality covered call ETFs that don't have, a couple of things, like they will have no NAV erosion. They'll also not be dividend yield traps, because if you want to live off of dividends as fast as possible, we want to avoid, losing money. So we want to avoid NAV erosion, yield traps, and just not the best quality ETFs. So we want to have high quality covered call ETFs, which are all in this video. The 3 high dividend ETFs that I would invest in to live off of dividends forever are 3. So jepq by JP Morgan, GPIQ by Goldman Sachs, and or QQQI by Neos Investments. And yes, all 3 of these ETFs will fight head to head in an ETF battle to win my #1 spot as the best high dividend ETF for dividend investors. So my high dividend ETF criteria is going to be based on a scorecard from diversification, dividend yield, income stability, expense ratio, tax efficiency, and finally total returns. So if an ETF wins that category, it will be awarded 1 point, and if it loses, it will be awarded 0 points. So hopefully you guys get the gist of it. The winner will have the most points and will be the winner of this video. So let's get started once again. Kicking us off with the first category on our scorecard is diversification. Basically, all 3 ETFs are based on the NASDAQ 100 index and provide exposure to this index as well, where they pay monthly income both from option premiums as well as equity dividends. So the diversification is going to be super solid across all 3 of these funds, so they will all be awarded their first point on the board. Moving on to the next category is their dividend yield. Right now, the current dividend yield for jepq is 10.9%, the dividend yield for GPIQ is 11.17%, and QQQI's dividend yield is 15.5%. That one was a no-brainer. Now QQQI takes the lead with its second point on the board. The next category is income stability. Now what I mean by income stability is if the ETF pays a stable and reliable monthly dividend, so you have some really good passive income coming in every single month. As a dividend investor, you don't want to have dividend payments that are going to be super volatile, So hopefully you're going to have some stable and reliable dividends from these covered call ETFs. I would also add that both QQQI and GPIQ are two of the best ETFs for income stability, so let me show you that exactly right now. As you can see on Seeking Alpha, QQQI's dividend history has been super stable, offering reliable and stable income. GPIQ is the same as well, with no volatile income payments, offering reliable and stable monthly income. And finally, jepq has the most volatility for its dividend payments, where some months it might be higher, some months might be lower, and overall it's not the most consistent. So with that, I'm going to give both QQQI and GPIQ another point on the board for income stability. Moving on to their next category, we have their expense ratios. GPIQ has an expense ratio of exactly 0.29%, jepq has an expense ratio of exactly 0.35%, and finally, the highest expense ratio is going to be QQQI of 0.68%. Of course, the lower the expense ratio, the more money we'll be saving on fees and just overall have more money to invest, so GPIQ will get yet another point on the board. The fifth category is something that everybody should take super seriously as a high dividend investor, and that's tax efficiency. Taxes are so overlooked by so many investors, pay some dividends as taxes, or they're going to get taken away from taxes, so we want to have the most tax efficient fund to keep the most dividends as possible. Now, there is literally so many ways covered call ETFs distribute their dividends for tax purposes. So we got return of capital or ROC, you got qualified dividends as well as ordinary income or unqualified dividends. For jepq, this fund writes their covered calls using ELNs or equity linked notes. ELNs are taxed at literally the highest tax rate of ordinary income. Ordinary income is the highest rate even for taxes, even higher than regular dividend income and long-term capital gains. GPIQ doesn't really do anything for tax efficiency, so the income is going to be taxed at the highest rate of ordinary income as well. Out of all three of these ETFs, the only one that's actually best for tax implications is going to be QQQI, which is actually managed for tax efficiency. On QQQI's website, it states that the fund takes advantage of tax loss harvesting opportunities, as well as utilizing NDX index options classified as Section 1256 contracts, which are then subject to lower tax rates at the 60-40 split. Now, in dummy terms, 60% of the income is then taxed at the lower long-term capital gains rate, and then only 40% of the income is then taxed at the higher short-term capital gains rate. And then, of course, some of the income is going to be received as a qualified dividend from the stocks that it holds in the fund. So with that, I'm going to give QQQI yet another point on the board to take the lead once again. Lastly, we have the total return category on our scorecard. Now, what I mean by total returns is going to be two things. One is going to be the share price appreciation, and then the second is going to be the dividends we receive as well. I also want to say that the covered call ETFs in this video have a very short track history of returns, so take that with a grain of salt because they're not going to have the longest returns like 10 plus years or whatnot. They've been released in the past few years, so take that as well with a grain of salt. Now, over the last year, we see that the NEOS ETF of QQQI comes in first place with over 7% total returns. And then GPIQ comes in second place at over 6.5% total returns. And then finally, jepq comes in at just under 6% for its total returns over the last year. Now, so far this year in 2025, given the most recent pullback, we see that QQQI as well comes down less than the other two ETFs during this correction. And then finally, over the last 3 years, it's kind of unfair to compare both QQQI and then GPIQ to jepq, since jepq has the longest track history of total returns. So I'm not going to count this time frame because it's going to be super unfair to both ETFs or all three of these ETFs in this category. So with that, we see that yet again, QQQI comes in with another point absolutely dominating and crushing all the other great ETFs in this video. Now, if we tally up all the final scores in this video, we see that QQQI is the winner of our one ETF pick to live off of dividends forever, where it comes in with a total of 5 points, and then in second place we see that GPIQ comes in second place with a total of just 3 points. And then finally jepq comes in at just a total of 1 point for third place. So QQI will be my winner of this video as my one ETF to buy and hold forever, so congrats to this one ETF. Now, if you want to see exactly my own ETF portfolio where I invest in my own ETFs every single week. Check out Blossom. It's in the link in the description of this video, and in the pinned comment, you can literally see my ETF portfolio for completely free on this free investing app. Not only do you see my exact percentage allocations between my Roth IRA, my 401k, and my taxable brokerage account, you could also see exactly when I buy ETFs on a weekly basis, so check out Blossom. I will see you there on Blossom. If you guys like this video, please give it a like and also subscribe because this cute puppy did. Now, if you guys want to see my one ETF that I would buy and hold forever, it will be this ETF in this video. I love you guys so much. Continue to crush in the stock market and take it easy. Peace.